Welcome to Radio Utopistan. It's the first episode and still kind of an utopia for me, this little radio. A place to gather visionary people from around the world, people that fight for their utopias, for progressive spaces within the system or outside the system, for electricity in war-torn neighborhoods, for example, or for trees, or for good food, for courage and comfort where there seems only oppression. And it's not about blueprints of how to organize societies, but about guideposts, roadmaps, and inspirational people along the journey. I am Elisabeth White, a journalist. I mostly report on topics which revolve around natural resources and radicalism. So, gold, copper, conflict, Nazis and Islamists. But this can get depressing sometimes, so I thought collecting people that shine a light on those topics might be refreshing. Happy if you come along with me. Today, we meet Maria Toorpakai. And ladies and gentlemen, she is impressive. Maria grew up in Pakistan, Waziristan, at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Maria calls it Taliban headquarter. The Taliban threatened to kill her for playing squash in shorts. They killed friends and family members of her.
A lot of people did bad to me, but I forgave them. I just do not want, I'm not upset with anybody.
Not even with the Taliban?
No. I'm not upset with anybody.
Obama once called Waziristan the most dangerous place on earth. His vision of counterterrorism was more and more drone strikes, which meant more and more killed civilians. Maria has a very special vision of counterterrorism. But it's not just about counterterrorism, her vision. It's about counter-prejudices and counter-closed-mindedness in general. Today, Maria is a professional squash player in the international arena, and she has a foundation to support girls in Pakistan. She's 29 and lives in Toronto, Canada. There's a documentary about Maria. It's called The War to Be Her. And I guess it is a war to be Maria Toorpakai. But there's also a lot of love in her life, she says. And one can see it in her eyes. I met her last year at a conference about global Islamism in Potsdam, Germany. We had lunch together in a first short interview. I always wanted to know more about her. So with COVID and Radio Utopistan, we reconnected in various internet sessions, one time even doing an online fitness workout together. The COVID lockdown is an easy task for her, she says. Because when the Taliban threatened to kill her, she hardly ever left the house for 3 years. And at the conference last year, I asked her what she thinks are the roots of extremism.
As human, as governments, I would say, they're not doing their job properly. Then as parents, people are not doing their job properly. Then as teachers, they're not doing their job properly. So what happens if the guidance is not there, good role models are not there? Islam is, when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was not only about his words, but his action also speak to the people. So the action and the words should match. So it's the responsibility of the governments, of the parents, of the teachers, and anyone out there. If we talk about peace, we have to spread peace. When we talk about education, which I don't see a priority for any Muslim governments out there, it should be the priority. There is pollution, there is child labor, there are women's rights violations, child rights violations, we have global warming, and we have wars, conflicts, refugee crisis. Why is all this happening? Because we, being human, are not responsible enough. Whether on the government level, whether as parents, whether as teachers, or whether as religious scholars. If we teach positivity not only in words but also in actions, because the children learn from your actions, not from your words, you would see different human beings out there.
Already when she was 4 years old, she somehow sensed that something was horribly wrong with the way girls were treated in Waziristan. For example, they were not allowed to play outside with the boys, which Maria wanted. So she cut off her hair and burned all her dresses at age 4. She says that her parents were exceptionally supportive. Her dad just laughed and named her Genghis Khan. Maria's life disguised as a boy started. She could play outside now with the boys and do sports. And then when her real gender was revealed, she was harassed and bullied, and the Taliban threatened to kill her. And this was not an idle threat. Pakistani Malala was shot in the head just for going to school. Malala survived and is an activist today, even a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Maria obviously also survived, but only because she didn't leave the house, like a quarantine from Taliban.
All I could think that I am going to change the system in that way. I'm not going to explain myself to anybody. I'm going to find a way.
Maria!
Oh, sorry, it got disconnected, my internet.
Or my internet, I don't know.
My internet.
Okay, doesn't matter.
A lot of young girls, they're beautiful girls, but they still doubt themselves. They still think they're not pretty enough, they're not good enough, they're not smart enough. That's also not freedom. You're not freeing yourself.
Maria Toorpakai's Utopia is a world in which everyone is really free, she says. Also from the inside, free from the mind. No prejudices, no extremists. Sport and good education can lead to that, she's convinced. At the sidelines of this conference last year, I wanted to know what role Islam is playing in all of this to her.
A lot of Muslims right now, they are explaining to the world that Islam is not like that, Islam is not like this, trying to be defensive. But I feel that instead of explaining to the world that this is not Islam or that is not Islam, show them in your actions what is Islam. And what is Islam? It's definitely the same thing. It's nothing different than freedom of choice, freedom of expression. Everyone should be allowed to follow whatever their religion, So that's one thing. And second thing is that I find Islam very beautiful. When I read Quran, it touches my heart. It gives me goosebumps. And if I don't understand some of the laws that are a little bit confusing, then I go into the background. It takes a lot of research. You have to put effort into it. A lot of people, they just go and listen to somebody. So it depends, where you end up, in whose hands you end up. And women have a lot of rights in Quran, which I read, that I understand. I can play sports, everything.
And I wanted to know more. We Skyped at the beginning of the COVID lockdown. The sound is, but I hope it's not too disturbing for you. I give you a summary of our almost 2-hour talk here. First, I wanted to know what she still remembers from that scene when she was 4 and burned all her dresses. And how a little girl already can understand that those clothes are somehow part of the problem women are facing all around the world.
When you're a kid, you really don't think of it as an oppression or anything like that. The only thing as a child that I could see was like seeing boys having short hair, having different clothing and playing outside, while I wanted to be among them playing sports, but I was looking different. My clothing was different, my hair was different, and I was like, I want to be like them so I can play, I can just be, camouflage in them, So, and I saw the girls who looked like me, like same clothing, same hair, they were playing with dolls, sitting at home, So I was like, I want to be outside. I want to look like those boys. I want to play with them, those kind of things. I told my parents a couple of times, but I was little, probably they didn't really pay attention that much. So to get the attention or maybe make my point, I just knew how my mom makes bread and set fire on, So I put on my brother's clothes on and tried to cut my hair. I ruined it, but I tried. But at the same time, I collected all my girly dresses, everything, and I just put it in one pile. And my mom used to put kerosene oil, a bottle of kerosene oil under one of the tree. So I knew how she does it, so I put a little bit on that, and I remember that scene definitely.
How do you remember your feelings? Was it with anger, or was it with some kind of excitement? Or I mean, it's just, for me, it's so hard to imagine as a 4-year-old kid to make all those things, to get this kerosene, to take the clothes. And
I also think it's a destiny. Like, the way things happen in my life, everything is just unbelievable, and everything is a miracle for me. So, being a girl from tribal regions of Pakistan on a Pak-Afghan border, like Afghanistan border, and this region, you know, is completely lawless and nobody really paid attention. We were always in war. We had Afghan refugees when Soviet Union war was there. So we were always in war. You know, we always had terrorism, Talibanization. And our local customs and cultures were really outdated. Nobody really paid attention to girls and their rights, and sports was not even a question, you know, even education. To me, like, coming from that region, I speak different languages today. I speak English, I speak Urdu, you know, I wear shorts, and I have such parents who always supported me. It's just a miracle everything happened. How I got so focused. Like, I get so focused when I want to do something. I sometimes really don't even ask. I just do things. You know, I just don't ask for permission. I just do things sometimes. And I actually, most of the times, this is my habit. I was lucky that my father supported me, and he just smiled and he said, you know, from now on your name is Genghis Khan. He just named me. You know, usually parents don't create that kind of environment with their children.
Yeah, especially not in tribal regions, I guess.
No, they want to keep fear, you know. They want their children to be afraid of the father, so that they listen to him, you know. They grow up with that kind of oppressed mentality, you know. And that creates a lot of anger, negativity, and hate, right? So that kind of trust you hardly see in parents back home, you know, in our countries. Because they don't think women can be equal, women can do jobs, women are strong, women can think. They don't think so.
And where did your parents have that wisdom from?
Well, my dad is, you know, he's naturally very much like that. He thinks about nature. He has a very strong faith. When you look at the nature, you know, there is so much to learn from it. We learn flying from birds. We learn swimming from fish. We can learn from ants, you know, hard work and living in unity and good community where everybody's working. So if we can learn all those things, examples are out there for us. How come we cannot learn that if a girl and a boy, they both are born from the same womb, how can we differentiate that a boy is better than a girl? Or a boy deserves better than the girl? Like, why?
And how did you then end up with the sports?
Well, the thing is, like, I was, I raised my twin brothers.
Now Maria is telling the story of her childhood, how she took care of her twin brothers when her parents had to be somewhere else, sometimes for weeks. How her family got threatened because they were so open-minded in an area where the girls are sold like goods, for just a little bit of money, as she says. She's telling how her parents taught her and her siblings at home, how her sister Aisha Gulalai became the youngest member of Pakistani parliament and dared to accuse President Imran Khan of sexism, even before the Me Too movement started. The hero in Maria's stories is always her dad, a surprisingly open-minded character in a very narrow-minded area, as she says, a tribal elder and the teacher.
All those stories that comes to my mind, I just don't know how to thank my dad for anything. Like, he's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it sounds really like an unbelievable human being. Yeah, but still, we didn't arrive at where you started. Where was the coincidence to get you into sports?
You always lose that.
Well, the thing is that, as I was always into sports since my childhood, hanging outside, running after kites or, herding sheep with the Afghan refugees there. So, that was always so much inspiring for me. But I never knew that, if life exists beyond that. I never knew.
But then they moved to Peshawar, a city of 2 million people. Maria still went under the name of Genghis Khan, and she was still running around with the boys and getting into fights with them. And those fights, they were getting more and more aggressive. One time, somebody had beaten up her twin brothers. You remember, that's how she started her story, how she ended up in sports. So she went after those guys that had beaten up her twin brothers to beat them up, but then she got punched in the face with a brick. The wound had to be stitched with 12 stitches. Her dad took her to a sports center to turn her energy into a different direction, her aggression, she says. And there, she first started with weightlifting.
And there were some squash courts right beside that. In my break time, I would just watch those kids play, and I was so fascinated with the sport. The rackets, the shoes, the squash court, the energy, I was like, this is so amazing. Like, I want to play this sport.
Also, her dad liked the idea. It's better for you to hit a wall than people, he said. They went to the squash academy together.
My dad took me there. Yes, he introduced me as his son, Genghis Khan, again. But it did not work because they needed my birth certificate. So the director of the academy, he said to my dad, like, we need your birth certificate. And then my dad had to tell him that this is my daughter, Maria. And he was a very good man. He was educated. He was a wing commander in the Air Force. He was a director of the academy. So he smiled and he said, "Are you sure that's your daughter?" And my dad is like, "Yeah, that's my daughter." And he laughed and he said, "Well, I'm so happy that finally a girl is going to play sports here."
The director and Maria kept the secret of her real identity for a while. But then someday it came out.
So this news spread out. And then all those boys thought, "Oh, I'm a girl, I'm weak," even they were scared of me, but they started using all kind of, humiliating words, and all those men would start harassment, started bullying was there, few attacks, and I couldn't even go to the shop, because the shopkeepers, they were treating me in a very disgusting way. I went into a very deep depression, like what's happening, what changed, and I was really angry, that all those boys, what are they telling me, and I'm, and they all got against me, in that way. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm not playing squash with anybody now. So I started playing by myself for hours and hours, from morning to evening I would come.
And she also tried going to school for the first time in her life.
I had short hair, very short hair, like shaved head. And I had girly clothes on because this was a school uniform. So the boys were sitting in the back of the bus and the girls were all sitting in the front of the bus with some teachers. So I got on the bus, my sister went to the front and I started going to the back and I sat right in the middle of the back seat among the boys.
Why? Do you know what you were thinking?
Well, I was like more scared of girls, I'm like, what am I doing there? What am I going to do there? I'm like, what's going to happen, And the teacher looked at me with so much anger and she said, "You come here." Looking at me in a very weird way, like something like an alien ended up in school, It just felt so different for me, like I couldn't really talk to girls, how to talk, what to say. What's happening about, like, what's my identity, who am I was so lost, so I would just sit there.
Did you know that? Did you know that for yourself? What is your identity? Who are you?
I knew.
You knew for yourself.
I knew I'm a girl in that way, but it never came to me in a mind that I am a girl, like that kind of thing. Like, I always thought I'm just equal as anybody else. I'm just human, right? Yeah. The way I was treated at home, Yeah. To me, girls were no different than boys. And I didn't know what they are teaching, I couldn't understand because I did not grow up with that kind of education system. Yeah. So I did not really fit in, so they would scream at me, why you don't understand, why you this, rather than explaining things to me. I was thinking, what's next for me? What's my life? Like, what am I gonna do? And I knew I'm not that kind of girl that, I don't want to end up with like those girls who get married and, So I decided, all night I was thinking that tomorrow I'm going to take my racket and I'm going to leave early morning, 8 a.m. and learn squash by myself. And I started winning all the junior tournaments in Pakistan. And during the tournament, sometimes you will get shoes, sometimes you get, you will get rackets, some clothing, so money, So, and I would bring all the money to my mom and dad and give them all the money. I won bronze medal in World Juniors.
The Taliban already had taken notice of her.
I got threats in 2007. There was so much terrorism happening right there, bombing every day. Some of our family friends, they died. They were kidnapped and killed too by the Taliban. The thing is that at that time I was all about squash and focused and want to win. That was my passion, and things were happening so much around me, but my mind was all into squash. That was that focus. I played really well. I played another tournament. I made it to the final. And I became a challenge for the top women in the world. And I was 16 years old, and I was nominated as the Young Rising Player of the Year award, by the International Squash Association. And the news spread out in Pakistan. The government, at that time, the president was Musharraf. He realized that from that part of the world, like Waziristan, my village, a girl is playing sports is huge. He gave me an award. The prime minister gave me an award. I got a car, a small car, and I gave that car to my dad. I'm like, this is for you, Dad. And the news was all over, television, everywhere. And that was the time when I got threats from the Taliban. Like, I got more into attention. And when I got that threats, like, they were severe, I had to pay attention because everything was happening there with our own friends, things happened. And I come from the same area, same place that they control, and which is headquarter to Taliban, which is their center, right? I am from the same tribe as they are. So if they're trying to teach lesson to entire Pakistan, how come their own girl from the same region, from the same tribe, is playing sports in shorts and skirts? So un-Islamic way for them,
She didn't tell anybody, not to cause more conflict, as she says. She just didn't show up at the squash court anymore. But then some high-rank Air Force chief called her, she says, and in Pakistan, Air Force is responsible for squash. So she had to tell him about the threats.
And he hung up the phone without even saying bye or anything. He hung up the phone, and in the evening I hear that they're discussing my security issue in the parliament. And the stickers, the stickers in the television, it was saying that, we are going to give her undercover security, we're doing this. I'm like, no, like, what's happening right now? Then they put snipers around the squash court. Even today, our squash court, that squash court has tank in front of it. A tank. A squash court, the only squash court probably in the world that has a tank and snipers on top of it. So I'm like, this is making even more dangerous, because in Pakistan there were, our prime minister was killed, our governors were killed, our army headquarter was attacked. How can you say I'm safe in that?
So when the first threats came, she just stayed home. Only sometimes she left the house at night to play squash in an abandoned squash court, she says. This quarantine lasted for 3 years. Of course I wanted to know how she did it.
I was at home, I had a vision I was thinking of squash court, winning world championship. I had to find a way. There was a passion behind that. And Nelson Mandela, he spent 27 years in a prison, but he had a vision. So if you have a vision, it will give you power to fight, to fight back, find a way, and the strength to endure. So all I could think that I am going to change the system in that way. So which means I'm not going to explain myself to anybody. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to play tournaments. And my dad one day told me, if you want to play, you have to leave the country. Emails every day, like thousands of emails I send every day. And for 3 years. And every email I sent, I would sleep with peace and think, there will be a message tomorrow.
But then there was no message, not for 3 years. She kept trying and trying. She says she believes in God and that if you keep trying, the universe has to come back to you. It's a test, she says. Just never give up. And then one day, there was a message. It was an invitation from a famous squash player in Canada. A year later, she was at the National Squash Academy there, only going back to Pakistan for short visits. The last time she got threats was in 2016, she says.
But the threat is always there, you never know. But I still go back and forth. I still stay very low-key, I don't really tell anybody where I am, what I do, if I'm in Pakistan or not.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still a Pakistani girl playing sport in shorts or skirts. So and you're playing on an international level, and you're on the news, and you're online, and you are what Taliban don't like or any Islamist doesn't like. No, I mean,
right. But the thing is, I'm happy and thanks to God that nothing happened so far. Malala got shot. I got threats before her, and she's from the settled area. I'm from the tribal areas, and I'm from the hub of Talibanization where they all live and where they all operate. And I'm from the same tribe. I didn't want any girl to go through this. The kind of support, the kind of education, the kind of life that I had, the unconditional love that my parents gave me, I want to give that to all those girls back home. Play my role as a parent to them.
Now, Maria has a foundation, the Maria Toorpakai Foundation. It encourages Pakistani girls to do sports, provide health care and education. They organize cross-border tournaments and build a women and children's hospital in North Waziristan. At the moment, they are fighting the COVID virus in Pakistan, raising money and awareness, distributing information, food, gloves, and face masks. Okay, sweet. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. I have some Radio Utopistan questions that everybody gets asked. So, what is your Utopistan? So, how would the world look like?
My dream world is everyone is happy, everyone has enough, everyone is peaceful, To live with freedom, that's the thing. You're born free, you live free.
And freedom brings happiness?
You mean freedom means happiness, you said?
Yes, for you, freedom equals happiness, because I see, in Western cultures, a lot of people are just overwhelmed by the freedom they have, and they just don't know what decision to take with all the freedom they have.
I think freedom is happiness. If you're free at soul, if you accept yourself fully, and you're all about yourself, you will always be free. But if you're not free from inside, you have doubts, you have fears, you hate things about yourself, you do not accept yourself fully, right? It has to start from inside you. You have to be free inside. A lot of young girls, they're beautiful girls, but they still doubt themselves. They still think they're not pretty enough, they're not good enough, they're not smart enough. That's also not freedom. You're not freeing yourself.
Yeah. What are you doing to make this dream world turn into reality?
Well, I
I'm focused on two things. Mind and body. Education and sports. And these are integral part of, like, sports is integral part of education. The world today is neglecting that because education is vast, is way bigger phrase. And the kind of education when we talk about the world is talking about go to school, get a book, get a pen. I understand those phrases, but I do not agree with those things. Because going to school, to me, is kind of, what kind of school? What kind of book? Right? All those things matter. And sports teach you a lot about self-respect, respect for others. It connects you to yourself, to humanity. Today, education in the world, I do not agree with that.
And on your way to this dream world turning into reality, is there one returning question that's always coming to you, like something you do not understand, something like that's always coming to you, like, I don't understand why people do this and that, or I don't understand how can it be that this and that? Is there something?
Yeah, I don't understand how people can be so violent. I do not understand when I see people have prejudice, when people are racist, when people are biased against other religions, when people are go to that extent in hate that they can kill anybody or hurt anybody. I think there's something missing in those humans. It's just like yesterday I was watching the story of the medieval times.
Yeah.
And the world history, when you read, there was so much violence, but today we have much more information. Learn from it. And this is a great time, right now in this crisis when people are in quarantine, just learn about yourself, connect to yourself, who you are.
Yeah.
Like, I myself, I know, like, if I hurt somebody, I cannot sleep. That's why I do not even try that way. So some people say, this person did this to me, I'm gonna take revenge. To me, it's a great opportunity to forgive people. And the forgiveness, when you forgive people, like, a lot of people did bad to me, but I forgive them. Like, I just I'm not upset with anybody.
Not even with the Taliban?
No, I'm not upset with anybody. Because if I react the same way, I'm the same way too. And I want to lead with the example too. Like, if I'm teaching kindness, if I'm teaching about love, I cannot just use words. I have to live it.
Yeah.
Just like squash, you work on it, you train, you improve skills. It's kind of a skill, you train your brain, you train your soul. There is consciousness in us that keep telling us that this is right or wrong. Which one gives you more peace? Yes, to some people maybe taking revenge, but if you take a revenge, it leads to another bad decision, another bad circumstance. But the good things that you do in life, it will always put you on a right path, on good times. Good people will come in your life, they will cross path. Always things happen like this, right?
It's just hard to see. It's hard to see what is the good and what is the bad. I mean, I guess this is also the work. It's so easy to say it's good to do good things, of course, but sometimes it's not that clear what's the good thing, and for some people it's hard to find that out.
Well, it's small things. For example, I would clean dishes for my roommates sometimes, or cook for them sometimes, or if they need help, it's just small things, I find a lot of joy in small things, and small things adds up to big decisions too. When you are responsible in small ways, big decisions you will always also make responsibility.
So this was Maria Toorpakai and the first episode of Radio Utopistan. My name is Elisabeth White. Thank you so much for listening till the end. I'm curious what you think. Tell me. Also tell me whom else to talk to. what questions or topics to put out there. Radio Utopistan will be out there every 2 weeks or so. Sometimes just interviews, sometimes more edited stories. Let's experiment along the way. If you liked this episode, please spread the word. Send your friends and family or whoever could need some inspiration for their very own utopias, private or global ones. And if you want to support Maria and her utopia, you can find her on Instagram and Facebook. And the Maria Toorpakai Foundation also has a website with pictures and videos and more stories if you want. I will put everything in the captions. And also 3 more names. Robert Pilgram, for example. He did this music here. He's a composer and a friend of a friend. Robert Pilgram, remember this name. Also, Christine Anders. She did the drawing for Radio Utopistan. Christine Anders is an illustrator and a very dear friend of mine. And another friend was important here, Fiona Weber-Steinhaus. She's a journalist and helped me with words, courage and comfort. Thank you, thank you. Always good to have good friends. Radio Utopistan will be telling you more stories in about 2 weeks or 10 days. I think we're gonna go to Africa. Tune in and you'll find out.